Thank
I
you.
can't see you right now. It sounded like Ed, but I
It
wasn't.
was. We're now live streaming, so that's cool.
Yeah,
Thank you for your card. It really meant a lot. We just opened them last night because every time I open that stuff, I start to cry. But I'll send you a note, but I thank you.
Oh, you don't need to send a note, Ed, you know?
You are so
I'm
much for that. That meant a lot.
very sorry for your loss.
Oh, it's horrible. It still is. I'm not over it yet.
Well,
Every time I start to talk about it, I cry. I'm in the first phase of whatever it is. So, what's new?
oh, not too much. How about with you?
Nothing. Here's my grandson. There's Alex.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, Alex.
Hey, Alex. Good looking boy.
He starts Ohio State here if that ever opens up.
Oh, so is he really gonna start?
Yeah. Did you see they canceled all the football or put it off, I guess?
Yeah. I had heard that the Big Ten had kind of voted to not play.
So
It wasn't agreed upon by everyone.
the problem is they're all going to get down there and then somebody's going to spray them all and then they're going to close the place and poor Alex will be back up here working on his computer.
Yeah. Well, they said for professional athletes, you know, and you know, obviously college is feeding into that system, that the after effects, if you actually come down with a very bad case of it, go on possibly for years, if not forever. And you know, these guys that are getting their jobs based on like their speed,
Yeah.
you know, a partial part of a second in your 40-yard sprint makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
So they have to be very protective of themselves, you know, just for their own future.
There's something to do with a heart thing. I don't know. A new theory.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Aaron,
How's everybody?
Good.
hanging in there.
That's about it, right? Hanging in there.
Yeah.
Matt, do you have an opener?
I'll come back tomorrow and grab it. Or do you have one now?
It's right there. Got one.
Jean, what does it say behind you?
It says happy birthday.
Yeah, that's good.
Is
My
it
birthday's
today?
coming up Saturday.
Happy birthday.
Why, thank you. Thought we'd add some festiveness to this meeting.
Oh, boy.
I'll try it.
Okay. There we go.
How's Beth?
I'm good. How are you, Karen?
Good.
I might need to change my background before we go live.
We are live already,
Oh, swell. Okay, good.
just so you know.
Where are you, Tim? On
I'm
the moon?
why I'm right here.
Hi, Janet. Who are we missing? Sandra? Who else are we missing?
Chip?
And Larry.
Chip and Larry.
and
Todd.
Sandra, Todd and Chris.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we're
Nancy, did you get your bag today of greens?
I did.
God, there was a lot in there today.
Well, do you think it had the biggest cantaloupe you ever saw in your life?
Exactly. We cut it already. It was phenomenal.
Me too.
Where'd you get it from?
We belong to this, Nancy calls it the COVID bag.
Rainbow Farms.
Yeah, Rainbow Farms, which is out in Madison, brings in a family share or a single share, I think it is, once a week to Mary Holmes Garage. You just go there, pick up your bag, it's got your name on it, and you leave. But it's once a week through the summer. I'm gonna sign up for the fall.
I have to
Sounds
share it
good.
with someone if I do it again. It's too much for me, even the single.
Oh, we share it, but we really enjoy it.
So
there's-
who do you call,
sell
Mary
at the
Holmes?
North Union Farmers Market.
Was she organized years ago? What is it? The Shaker Square one or whatever, Nancy? Got
Yeah.
that started.
Okay.
He picked this farm and one of the drop-off places is Gates Mills. And there's a lot of people participating. I gotta tell you, must be 30, 40, wouldn't you say, Nancy?
I actually think there are 21, but there are a lot.
Oh, there's more than
Okay.
that. Maybe 21 from Gates Mills. Maybe.
Oh,
some-
right,
I
only
don't
from
know.
Gates Mills.
Yeah, okay, so
Oh, no, they have a huge
huge following.
following. They're really great farmers.
Anyway, it's
and
very nice.
Beth,
So the
it's-
fall one is coming up. If anybody wants the sheet, I can send it to them. It's quite nice.
Okay, please do.
And they have a package for Thanksgiving,
Okay.
which is kind of got a
I'm
nice
gonna let
list
this one
to
in.
it
I
and
don't know who
whatnot.
Catherine is. Do you?
Well, we'll see.
I'll send it.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
Laura.
Yes, fresh turkeys walking around outside, if anyone thinks.
Thank you, Larry.
How come I can't see everyone? Why can't I see Larry?
I don't know. He's right there.
Changed my name though.
Not on my screen.
I will hide myself because I don't need to be shown, but
I don't know.
There, sorry.
Maybe this
Well, you know what?
machine doesn't show that many squares. I don't know.
Actually,
There's
Nancy, your
Chip.
square is rectangular instead of it's like oblong. Maybe your video is.
They should just get smaller.
Right.
I'll come back and I'll see Aura.
Nancy, you've got it, you're showing up vertically, not horizontally. So I think that's what might be part of your problem.
I don't think so.
That's much
No.
better.
It doesn't make any difference.
You don't have a landscape button that you can at the top change from a vertical to a horizontal format?
It doesn't,
Hi, Chris.
Hello there, how are you?
Oh,
Good.
Nancy, you're horizontal.
I can be either way, but if I'm horizontal, it's harder for me to hold the machine
Oh.
unless I go up and go to my computer.
Who are we
Another-
missing now? Do we have everybody?
we're
Todd,
still missing Todd.
Well, it's 1 minute.
Nancy, are you on an iPad?
I am.
You might have to just scroll your screen right and left to see the other people.
Ah, you're right. Thank you.
You are welcome.
here comes Todd.
Todd's coming in.
Is Catherine someone I know?
Well, I've unmuted her to ask who it is.
She's still. Oh,
Catherine, Mom.
Hi, Catherine.
Catherine, who was
What was the
this?
name?
Malmquist, our librarian.
From the library.
I'm trying to
Oh.
unmute me, but it keeps muting me. So anyway, I'm the librarian.
Okay.
How are you, Catherine?
I am doing well. How are you doing?
We're hanging in there. Hi,
Good.
Todd.
I think we have to mute you because you're not on.
I know, but every time you ask me a question, it mutes me. So sorry.
Our chief is doing that, Catherine. So if you
Oh.
leave your button
Oh,
alone,
so I will leave it to Robinson, huh?
Yes.
Right.
thank you.
Bye.
Okay. I think we have everybody, right? It's not as easy when you're not sitting at a table.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to call the meeting of our village council August meeting to order. Beth,
Allworder,
Here?
Frankel,
Here.
Reynolds,
Here.
Sog,
Here.
Turner. I didn't hear you, Sandra. Welsh,
Here.
Whitney.
Here.
Sandra, can you hear us, Sandra?
Yes, I can.
Okay, all right. First thing on the agenda is the minutes from the council meeting of July 14th, 2020.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a comment.
Okay,
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, page 6, at the end of the very long paragraph discussing the road work, the 190,000 of road work. And I do think this is what we said in the meeting, that the roads included Brigham, Wilson Mills, Old Mill, and Chagrin River. And quite frankly, 4 days later, I'm driving down Berkshire and all this equipment's going along Berkshire. And I didn't actually even know that Berkshire was a county road. And I called Dave and said, what's going on? And he said, well, Berkshire is a county road. It was part of the program. So I don't know if it's appropriate to add it because it was not actually stated in the last council meeting, but it is one of the county roads and it is one that was worked on already.
Well, that answered my question to the mayor this afternoon. I said, who did the Berkshire Road? Did the
Thank you,
Saltzmans do it?
Well, yeah. So I was as surprised as you. So
Are you wondering why it says county roads on the line above that?
no, because Berkshire is a county road.
Well, it says on county roads, Brigham. Oh, they didn't add Berkshire. I see what you mean. Why
Right.
did they add
we're
Berkshire?
just adding it in.
Okay.
Okay. That was my comment.
I can make the note for this month, but it wasn't stated last month, so it's not a correction to the minutes.
That's what I was also asking. Okay.
Okay,
So we good with the minutes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ed made a motion and I believe Larry seconded.
Correct.
okay. Beth?
Roll call. Beth?
Sorry, Allworder,
Yes.
Frankel,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Sog,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh,
Yes.
Whitney.
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda is pay ordinance 1240 for $402,060.09.
Move to approve.
I have a question on page 5.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Nancy.
On page 5, the St. Christopher Church pay advice 4409.
What was that? I can't.
Page 5.
Yeah, I emailed you the answer on that, Larry. That's the refund for the 319 grant.
Okay, yeah, I actually didn't get that email, so I was wondering about that. And then I'm assuming the Burton, I also asked about Burton Scott, that must be Old Mill.
That was the Old Mill Road emergency repair earlier in the year.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
And I had a question on page 3, ABV Corporation for 8,400. Who are they? What do they do?
That was emergency repair on the sanitary lines along Chartley.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a collapsed lateral by one of the houses, so we had them come in and fix the portion of it that is our responsibility out in the right of way.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay. Doesn't sound like it. Ed made the motion to approve. Nancy seconded. Allworder,
Yes.
Frankel,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Sog,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh,
Yes.
Whitney.
Yes.
Okay, next is the financial statement. Tim?
Okay. Taken as a whole, our revenues are now down 889,000 from this time last year. Municipal income tax receipts are down 578,000, and the village's share of real estate taxes are down 353,000. All other sources of revenue are actually, well, total other sources of revenue are up. Most muni tax and real estate tax receipts are down, or both of them are down because of a combination of the impact of the pandemic and delayed payment deadlines. Those of you paying real estate taxes will know that the second installment of real estate taxes, in fact, is not due until August 15th, I think.
13th,
Likewise,
it's Thursday.
is it
Yeah,
Thursday?
13th.
And then muni taxes also were pushed back as well. So there will be some timing impact, and it's difficult to judge, therefore, how much of this is COVID related. Well, it's all COVID related. Some of it we're going to get, and some of it we may not get because of COVID. Our operating expenses are all running well within budget. In fact, are 321,000 below this time last year. Our total funds stand at 4,957,000, which is 278,000 lower than this time last year. Our investment account balance is 4,888,000, including accrued interest. Our interest income for the next 12 months is projected to be at 97,000. Our long-range financial planning committee continues its work. All 3 subcommittees met during the month and continue to identify and quantify feasible options to enhance our village financial structure. We will have a final meeting of the full committee when all subcommittee reports are finished, which is expected in the next 2 weeks. This meeting will be an open meeting. We will then have a final report to submit to council at the September council meeting. Thank you. If there are any questions, be happy to try to answer them.
I just think it's really impressive how our departments have worked so hard to keep below budget. I want to commend everyone.
I'd say here to that. We went through a process, as you all know, of trying to identify expenses that were deferrable, and I think we had that was done very conscientiously. Many of those expenses identified as deferrable would not normally occur until the fall. So we, I guess what I'd say is we have sort of a bank of cost underruns yet to be experienced, depending on how COVID, the pandemic plays out.
Tim, will you be announcing a date for your meeting?
Yes, I wanted to talk with the subcommittee chairs to make sure they were comfortable with the meeting before I announced it.
Okay.
Any other questions for Tim? Okay. We'll move on then. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Mayor's report. I don't have a whole lot because there's not a lot going on with the exception of our meetings that are being held by Zoom. A couple of things though, the post office, I've had some calls on that. And I don't know if anybody noticed, I will send it to you. I just got it this afternoon. Peter Griesinger wrote a letter to the editor of the Plain Dealer, which was published on Sunday, August 2nd. I didn't see it, but I do have it. And he believes that since they're cutting hours and whatnot, they're trying to make the smaller libraries not look like they're doing as well as you would think they're doing by limiting their
Karen,
hours and deliveries.
Post office or library?
Post office.
Okay.
Did I say library? I meant post office. I did. Anyway, so with that, there's a group. I've had not just Peter's call. I've had a few calls on this, and they want. And I know Ed wants to see I consider our library. I keep saying library. That's because Catherine's on the Zoom. Our post office is service in the village as opposed to. I mean, it's a retail entity, if you will, but I do consider it a service to all our residents and whatnot. So they're going to get together and write some letters. He did get a response from Senator Portman to the letter that he wrote, which I thought was good. I'm sure that sending his letter and maybe sending some letters from council myself could help the situation. So we'll take that up again. Mayfield Schools is the only school I know of, unless something changed yesterday or today, that's going back virtually for the first 9 weeks in our area. And I also want to read a thank you note that was sent to our fire chief, Tom, that I thought was very nice. And I think it's like our police and our fire are our faces, if you will, out there in the community, as well as for each entity. Anyway, hi, Chief Robinson. Hope you are doing well. I wanted to thank you, send a thank you to the fireman who was servicing the fire hydrants on Saddleback Lane and Timber Ridge Trail today. My 4- and 6-year-old kids were, of course, very excited to watch him flushing the fire hydrant on our street. They were over the moon excited when he offered to let them be junior firefighters and learn about what he was doing, and offered to let them help by releasing the valve on the hydrant under his supervision, and while he was wearing a face mask. These kinds of interactions are one of the many reasons we love living in Gates Mills, and we wanted to send a personal note and thank him and the fire department for all you do. And it's from Megan Perez on Saddleback Lane. Just another example of our guys doing good things out there. We thank them.
That's great. That's great, Tom.
That's all I really have. Beth, clerk.
I agree with you, Karen. There's just not much to say about the best I can come up with is there is an orange cone at the post office that says ground wasps. That's about all
that's
I have.
gone. It's gone.
It's gone?
It's gone.
Okay.
It wasn't there today.
I hope the wasps are gone.
I
Okay.
assume so.
Okay, any committee reports?
Nope.
Okay. Sandra, you don't have anything from Land
Land
Conservancy?
Conservancy? Not really. Nope, nothing today.
Okay. Go
I
ahead.
could update the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended our riparian setback ordinance. And I'm kind of curious how we're going to proceed on that. I assume we're not going to have discussion since it's not, well, I guess it's on the agenda, but I hope we'll have some discussion about moving it forward, and that we can't wait till the end of the pandemic for our public hearing. How we're going to do that, I'm not sure, but I assume Ann's coming up with some great ideas.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. It's listed, so we could talk about that then. Any other committee reports? Okay, we'll move on to Police Department. Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, good evening. Everybody should have received a copy of my monthly report. I will certainly be happy to respond to any questions you might have. The last week of, well, the entire month of August and last week of July, busy. I mean, just things going on. I highlighted some of the items in my report there. Of significance, I think, is number 1 there. And you'll see where neighboring agencies have had, some burglaries, attempted burglaries with these distractions. And I did see yesterday, and we're going to follow up. I don't think they're going to be related to this. It's supposed to be a criminal ring. They did make an arrest in Lake County. They announced it yesterday. So, we're going to see if there's any connection there. I mean, we didn't really have anything in our town, but still we want to see if these people were through our town. So there's a way we can do that. So, keep an eye on that. But there's been quite a bit in the media about this. So you want to make sure that, you're aware of your surroundings and you're you're locking your doors and certainly reporting anything that might be suspicious to us. We want to know about that. Number 2 there, we had a theft at Gilmore Academy. We have identified suspects in that. And they also have been involved with similar crimes in some Lake County agencies, Wickliffe, Eastlake, Willoughby, a couple others throughout Cuyahoga County. So they've been identified and they will be charged. They have confessed to the crimes. So we will be seeing some charges come from these 2 males. And the other thing I did want to mention was you'll see number 5 there. Dave and I kind of talked about this, and we really don't have to do a whole lot other than have the service department install some type of lock for us. So newer buildings, what they do with police departments now in town halls, they create like a safe zone for somebody to go to, if they're being chased or if there's some kind of emergency, they're in fear for their immediate safety. So being that we're not staffed around the clock anymore, we thought this would be a good idea. So the vestibule entry door into the town hall is always unlocked, and then the second door you come to is always locked. So we're thinking that if we could just put an interior lock on the front door, there's a camera in there and there's a phone to reach dispatch, and we'll make some signs up and we'll get that out there. So in case we do have something like that, I don't know, somebody's road rage incident, somebody's being followed, whatnot, they know the police department's there, thinking that it's staffed when nobody's going to be there, and hopefully they'll come in and they'll have the the wherewithal to lock that door. So we're going to try to go ahead and get that done here soon. Like I said, I talked to Dave about that, and we think that's going to be a good idea.
It's a good spot because there's no windows.
I have 2 things. One is I think it's a great idea. I was hoping you were going to publicize it in the pink sheet and that kind of thing. I have a question about our ticketing. I'm kind of curious if you're getting repeat offenders now that we're doing fewer tickets, to people who are speeding, that kind of thing. I noticed that our speeding tickets are really, really way down. And I'm assuming you keep track of the warnings that you give or how that works. So have you had a lot of repeat offenders who now know that we're kind of not doing it?
I can't speak to that without doing the research. I have noticed that, and you're right, we record all that. It's not really jumping out at me. It's something that, I think is sporadic. You see that from time to time, but I can't say we've seen a lot of that though, Nancy.
I'm just curious.
Well, I will say when you go on the highways, it's amazing. 75 to 80 seems to be the new speed limit. So,
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey,
Well, it just makes sense.
Chief Greg, I was just thinking a little bit about what you just had to say about the safe zone and all, and making sure that our residents know that it's there for their protection. But as I'm thinking about it, it's perfectly placed and available for, let's say, families using the park. And I hadn't really thought about it in those terms, but if a young family in some way was feeling intimidated or insecure about a stranger coming up to their children, and there they are, and their car might be parked all the way down toward, let's say, the library or something, I think that might be a really nice added benefit of that lovely little park and playground, to have families know that if something were not quite right, and we all have that kind of, spidey instinct, when something doesn't look right or feel right. I think it might be a nice public service announcement. Let people know, families that are using the park, that if for some reason they're uncomfortable, that vestibule is available to them. That might be a really, really nice, comforting thing for families who've got kids down there, and something just doesn't quite feel right, whether it's the time of day or the kind of people that are interacting with them. Or so let's find a way to let the people who are using that park know that they have a safe spot to go to.
Yes. Mary, do you think like a sign over by the playground might help so that people remember it's there?
I think I'd let the chief develop that as he sees fit, because I also don't want to instill any fear.
Right. That sounds kind of dramatic.
Right. I think we need to spread the word in the pink sheet from the chief in there and whatnot. And
Well,
Yeah,
just-
because you could say the same for the tennis courts or the bocce courts. if
Right,
somebody
of course.
were around
Exactly. Bocce-
Anywhere down there.
Anything down there, you know, if you feel unsafe, you know, come up to the vestibule. But I'm sure the chief can package that in a very nice, user-friendly way, but still get the word out that a family or somebody on the tennis court, maybe is at dusk or something like that, has a place to go to if they're feeling insecure. So I really like the idea.
Yeah, we'll definitely, try to get that out there as much as we can, and we'll do it, delicately, and, we'll do it the right way. And I can also tell you, that I can recall 2 times over the years of my career here where we did have people run into the station for some of the things that I had mentioned, but we did have around the clock dispatching back then. The door was open.
Oh,
So, a little bit different scenario back then, obviously, but, we think it's, better to have it and not, hopefully not use it than not have it at all. So
Absolutely.
we think it's a good idea.
I think the library, are the library hours still till 9 o'clock at some nights? I mean, the same thing could happen if somebody left the library and felt somebody was following them to their car.
Exactly.
So it's a great idea. Thank you. I'm sure you can get that message out nicely.
I know I've asked this before, but is there any rethinking about placing a couple cameras in the downtown area just to record?
I think that's one of the things that, in fact, I had talked to Councilman Frankel about this. We just shored up a safety committee date. We're going to have that October the 12th. We're still a few months out for that. But that's probably going to be one of the things that, we'll discuss at that level, and we'll see where that goes. So that's going to be added to the agenda for our meeting in October.
Great. Good idea.
Anything else for the chief?
No, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Service Department, Dave?
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, you should have received a copy of my monthly report. If you can answer any questions you may have.
You slowed down there in your transmission.
Okay, no questions. We'll move on. Next is Fire Department. Tom. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. You should have received a copy of the fire department report for July. It was a fairly busy month for the fire department with 18 calls. Still have some issues with people cooking and setting off their alarm systems. I don't think that's ever going to change.
That's because everybody's at home.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more people cooking at home than there have been. So I guess fortunately the run numbers aren't even higher than they are. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. If not, that concludes the fire department report.
Thank you, Tom. Next on the agenda is ordinance 2020-9. Ann?
This is the ordinance adopting new chapter 1176 riparian setbacks of the codified ordinance of the village. And it's great news that planning and zoning has referred this back to council. I hope Nancy agrees. It was good discussion, and it was, I think everyone was engaged in figuring out, what this ordinance was all about. After putting thought into it, ideally, the public education and the public hearing portion of the process for this ordinance would be done in person. And I agree with Nancy. I'm not patient by nature. However, I'd like to give it a couple more months and see if something in person seems likely. If not, and we're coming up to the end of the year, then I think it would be a good idea to go to Plan B and do some things on Zoom. So in fairness to trying to have a good dialogue with residents and in an effort to really have a efficient education, I'd like to wait a couple months and just see if anything shakes out. So, but I'm obviously open to ideas.
And
Well-
what if, wait a minute, before you go on, what about putting something about it that it's past planning and zoning and that it's past council and whatnot, and we're waiting to have a public hearing? Maybe we could get input, from the pink sheet, put something in there that it's past all these things. If people have questions out there, kind of post it.
Right, but it hasn't been passed at council until.
No, I know that, but we've had
after
three
the
readings.
readings. Right. we
Right,
can
it
say that
isn't
it's been-
passed, but if there's questions.
Well, I just wanted to clarify that.
I,
Said passed.
I hesitate to put too much out there until we can offer an education event where the answers would be readily available and uniformly available. I know Chagrin River Watershed is great at doing the presentations and answering questions. And I think there's value in having a group conversation. I always learn from other people's questions. So my fear is that if we put it out there, that residents might not be happy about things moving along and might not realize that they will have ample opportunity to ask questions. So once we have a date for an education event, then yes, I'd like to give people time to get their thoughts together before that and be ready to get their answers. But to put it out now when we don't know when that event is going to be, I think is maybe a little premature.
So I have two comments. We really have two obligations here. One is our desire to educate and inform our constituents to the best way we can. And the second is our actual legal requirement, I guess, or statutory requirement per our ordinance to have a public hearing. So my question to Todd is, what is going on with communities right now where they're trying to do something that requires a public hearing? Can you give us some ideas of how they're trying to accomplish that, just from the legal side, so to speak, technical?
Sure. Since the pandemic hit and most councils and boards and commissions have gone to virtual meetings, I've had two actual public hearings, meaning ordinances that were under law subject to the public commenting on them if they wished. And it went really well on Zoom, actually. That if you get to that point, we did an educational piece during that public hearing to explain what the legislation was about, and then took questions from citizens who were on Zoom, and the person who controlled the Zoom meeting let people speak and ask questions. So it worked fairly well in that kind of format.
So, Ann, that would suggest really two steps. One, to put together perhaps some education material and maybe to post then on the village website or something, mention it in the pink sheet and schedule a public hearing via Zoom with the appropriate time. Sounds to me like that should be the step we do here, and we should do it the next 1 to 2 months.
I was hoping the education component would be driven by Chagrin River Watershed, because it's what they do. They work with the village. They've worked with so many municipalities. So I was picturing the education as a interpersonal rather than material online.
Okay, well, but Todd said that the public hearing included an education portion, so they could, if they have any material that they already have prepared, they could put that on the website and then be prepared for an education part of the Zoom call.
I agree with Chip. It seems to me that we had a meeting where we had an education session and we did have attendees and they had the opportunity to ask questions. I don't think our residents are shy if we're able to get the information out there. I just think it makes sense to move forward with this. And no one has commented. It's been on the agenda for 3 months.
Right.
4 or 5 months.
Well, there's nothing to say that the watershed presentation could be by them on Zoom.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't have to be really long.
They do it well, though.
They do it well. If I can line up the watershed to do a Zoom presentation, and I'm not sure the actual dotting the i's and crossing the t's on the public hearing, but I think it makes sense to do the public hearing and the education at the same time.
Yes.
Right, I think Todd could guide us on that.
And if we're going to start to publicize it, we do have the next version, next issue of the Pink Sheet coming up. Deadline's probably in another 10 or 15 days to put the first notice, and then maybe then have a second notice in the October Pink Sheet, which comes out the end of September, and have the Zoom meeting then, or have the Zoom meeting in September. But
And you could call it too after you have the Zoom hearing, and what, if you're not satisfied with the attendance, Ann, you could call another one if you wanted to.
I'm all for moving ahead. It's okay with me if we could get a date going and get a Zoom education, and the public hearing needs to be posted for 30 days, Todd?
30-day advance notice, yes.
So from now, we'd be talking about September.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'd talk to Watershed and see if they're comfortable and could, if they have any material to post, and then if they'd be ready to do a presentation on Zoom. And now, if we scheduled it for sometime in September, do we wait for the public hearing and then have council approval, or do we approve it first and then have a public hearing? What's the sequence there,
No,
Todd?
you have to have the public hearing before final passage.
Okay, so it'd be nice if we could have it before the October council meeting then.
Chief Robinson and Jean.
And the only comment I would make.
We lost you, Sandra.
I was hoping.
The only comment I would make is yeah, okay. I maybe froze. Just make sure that we use the term riparian setback in all the advertising materials. We didn't do that last time, and I think that accounted for the poor participation.
I might also just ask for all the webmasters out there, Jean and Chief Robinson, is our website capable of having?
He's hiding.
Our website capable? Can you hear me? Is our website capable of having an audio presentation on it instead of just bullet point, facts and figures? I mean, why?
Yes.
Is it possible?
Yes,
to have
it could
some
be a
kind of,
link.
small dialogue of a presentation made on our website?
Yes.
I think that'd be more helpful than just a bunch of information and bullet points asking people to read them. If we could develop a little mini documentary.
Yeah, the Watershed Partners has the presentation that they give and all the information material. We could ask if they'd be willing over there to have one of their people walk through their presentation, complete with the explanation of all the slides, and then post that video of the presentation on the website.
I think that would be great.
I
Well, and
agree.
With Zoom also, if you have a presenter, that presenter can share their screen with everybody else. And so they can go through the presentation on their computer, and everybody, that's what they see is what is on that person's computer. So you're able to make a pretty effective presentation
I
through
think we
Zoom.
should do that versus than just black and white, bullet point information. And might I also recommend that we use Tim's background as part of the because I think looking at that is a home run for the riparian setback.
Yeah, that presentation they did for council, if they happen to have that or could film it so that we could put that up, I think, that tells the story. It was terrific.
I agree, Karen, and I think our residents would really appreciate looking at it.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Plus,
So-
it gives them plenty of time to formulate questions if it's on the website.
Absolutely, Nancy.
I'll email Heather right now.
Can I ask a question? Now, my understanding was that the P and Z would make the scope of what the riparian setback will look back and what the limitations and what the demands are. Is there any way to get a copy of this documentation that came out of the P and Z meeting that will form the riparian setback legislation.
P and Z recommended the ordinance that is on the, that's in the packet from
Yeah,
P and Z. So you'll have all the dimensions right in there, Ed, in the P and Z minutes.
How do I get my hands on those?
Dave Bigger posts them on the website, but I'm sure he'll send you a personal copy.
Well, actually, wasn't it in the original, the legislation should have been in your council packet when we first discussed it.
Well, my understanding was that the P and Z would form the recommendations of what the scope of the final.
There's a map.
legislation is.
The map is, I think what he's talking about, where you can actually
No.
see the 25 feet ones and the 75. That's what
You
he's
guys
talking.
had the ordinance.
But it's part of the ordinance.
Which
also.
then went to planning and zoning, so you've already had it. We didn't make any changes to what originally council saw.
Okay, so it's still full scope then.
Yeah.
Correct.
But I can get you a copy of it. Yeah, it's not a problem.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
So to review, to make sure I'm on track, Chris is going to work with Heather at Chagrin River. We're going to put it in the pink sheet that there will be a and post for a education and public hearing at the same time electronically on Zoom. And am I correct that we're going to try to have this occur in September?
Correct.
Okay.
And also in that pink sheet article, the mention that they can learn more about the whole thing on our website at their leisure and in the comfort of their home, and hopefully be able to look at the Conservancy's, already designed, video of what they're talking.
I think that video is key on the website.
Janet, the only thing we need to check, we need to get it in the paper in 30 days. So it
Yeah,
may-
so I'm not sure, are you having the public hearing before the October meeting or are you having it separately?
Yes. Yes, it will be in this September. That's what we just told Ann. We'd like to do it in September so
Yeah.
that we can put it on the agenda.
So the public hearing would be separate from the October council meeting.
Correct. It'll be in September with the public hearing and the education session. I understand this to be, they will be simultaneous, and that will then be ready for the October council meeting. Is that everyone's view?
Just for reference, the October council meeting will be October 13th. So it's relatively late. So I mean, if the 30-day notice means that our public hearing is, the 1st of October or something, that's okay. The point is that it'll be before the October council meeting.
Exactly.
And 30 days after we set up the notice. So
Exactly.
Chip, where exactly will the notice be for villagers? Website, pink sheet?
no, I have no idea. I don't know how you do that.
Oh, it
Usually-
shows up in the Chagrin Valley Times, but I'm sure we could put the notice in the pink sheet. You can put it on the website. You can do whatever you want.
Maybe we can put it on the community.
And why don't we just talk, Ann, after this meeting?
Right, and have Todd confirm that we're doing it totally appropriately.
And I think a notice at the post office and maybe even on the community house billboard.
Well, the community house is still closed. Oh, you mean on the front board? Yeah, we always do that.
I just say plaster this information about how to review this before the October council meeting, every place you can think of.
Yeah, something.
That's a good idea,
We
Mayor.
send a letter
I
out.
don't want
from
anyone
there.
to see that they couldn't see it or didn't see it.
Yeah, something like this, shouldn't the village send a letter out from the mayor advising everybody? I mean, this affects everyone's property.
Todd?
Not required, but certainly can do that if you wish.
When we had the educational session in May of 2019, every villager received a letter about that. And that educational event did explain, riparian and what sorts of parameters are in place in neighboring communities. So I feel like we've sent the villagers have been aware of.
I mean, what damage would we do to send a letter out now that it's actually going into effect?
I don't think there's any damage. There's a cost.
It's an expense.
Right.
And I think if we are diligent in getting the information out there. We have a lot of resources that don't require us to spend the money for the letter, since we've done it once before. I think that if Todd is satisfied that we've done everything and more than we could to satisfy the legal requirements, I think that's sufficient. It has not been controversial thus far.
Agreed.
It's common sense. So Chris, you'll keep us in the loop on the watershed, and Janet
Yep.
will have a discussion about timing and dotting the i's and crossing the t's. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Okay,
Thank you,
so
Ann, for all your effort.
next on the agenda is ordinance 2020-28. Nancy, do you want to?
Yes, please. I am going to introduce ordinance number 2020-28, an ordinance amending sections 1167.02 through 1167.06 of the Planning and Zoning Code of the codified ordinances of Village Gates Mills regulating signage. And this was also brought, to the, I want to just get my ordinance out here. This also came before the Planning and Zoning Commission, who approved it. If you look at the changes, we have primarily made changes to conform to what we see as the case law in Ohio. Our ordinance on signage has been outdated for some time, and we really haven't had it come to the surface as an important factor. But now that it's the election season, we feel that the mayor has had some calls, Dave has had some calls about residents complaining about signs in the village and the size or the type of signs that they are.
Length of time up.
At any rate, we needed to bring our ordinance up to the modern world. So right now, since we have people thinking about it and having signs in their yards, we wanted to make sure we did a thorough review of the ordinance and not just to deal with political signs. So you'll see that we changed, and I know you've all had a chance to read this, but just so that anyone watching has the opportunity to also understand that we had to look at real estate and other commercial signs. And so we put in some language to clarify what the rules are on those signs. And we are not permitted to charge a fee for political signs or require a permit under the case law. So we decided that was probably not the way to go. So we eliminated it. And I'll turn to Todd if he has any further comments on the signage ordinance. And go from there. Todd?
Nancy, I think you made a good summary of what this is about. Our sign ordinance has not been amended since 2002. So over the last 18 years, there's been quite a bit of case law across the country, mostly in federal courts, but also in Ohio courts, kind of spelling out the parameters of signage, particularly residents who want to display signs. And those are political signs, signs that express opinions, signs that support certain issues that may be going on a ballot, and then distinguishing those from commercial signs. And the case law has actually elevated real estate signs to a place that's not as protected as political signs, but more protected than general commercial signs. So what we've tried to do is strike a good balance here between those types of signs, knowing that real estate signs in residential areas are much larger than the 3 square feet that's permitted in the current ordinance, and not wanting to try to reduce the size of those real estate signs, and not treating them any better than political signs. So that's how we came up with the sign limitations. And I think Dave Biggert would tell you that it's really a real burden to do a permitting system for these temporary residential signs across the village. And also it's at this point not legal to charge permits or have permits for political signs because it is a chilling effect and delays people's First Amendment rights with respect to political speech. So I think it's a pretty comprehensive amendment. And of course, I have expressed this in a confidential legal opinion, and hopefully that's sufficient for your purposes.
Thank you. Any questions for Todd or Nancy?
I guess I have one more question, actually for Todd. We have not made this an emergency, so will this just be on first reading?
Well, we have to have a public hearing, and I believe that public hearing has been noticed already for Janet. What date? The next council meeting.
Next
Okay.
council meeting at 6 p.m.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And then we cannot, because the charter says we cannot pass a zoning regulation by emergency. So this will not go in effect until actually probably the first or second week of October. And so we're still before the election, but I think we're in a position where we're not going to be enforcing the current regulations strictly at this point.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Any other questions?
So this is just first reading, Nancy?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
So we don't have to take any action.
Correct.
Okay, that's all the questions. We'll move on to Resolution 2020-29. Larry?
Okay, this is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a second one-year extension of an agreement for the provision of school resource officer services with the Mayfield City School District and declaring an emergency. Basically, this is the resolution to renew our school resource officer for our village.
I'll second.
Well, first we have to have a motion to suspend, I believe, right, Todd? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
I'll second that.
Who seconded?
Chip.
Who first? Who made?
You did, Larry.
Larry. Okay. Alberter,
Yes.
Frankel,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Sog,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh,
Yes.
Whitney.
Yes.
Quick question. I might have missed it at the very front end. Is Gates Mills Elementary opening up in class in real time?
No.
No.
First 9 weeks are virtual in all the Mayfield schools.
So it does beg the question, what does our school resource officer do during the 9 weeks?
That's a very good question.
So I could probably take that. I unmuted myself, figuring I'd probably be a good person to respond to this. So, so what's going to happen is, first I should start by saying that I have had some conversations with the treasurer up there at Mayfield, Mr. Snyder, and they have a board meeting scheduled for later this month. So they're going to take care of their end. With that said, so it's really going to be between the principal, Laurel Revita, and us to determine what we want to do with Arch. There's going to be days where he is going to be needed. They're going to be teaching out of the school. Okay, they will be teaching out of the school. Teachers will report. Is he going to be needed there every day, all the time? No, he will not be. When he's not, we'll more likely than not use him on day shift to help cover some of these shifts and have him make frequent stops over there at the school to see what their needs might be. So, we're going to be in pretty good shape with that. School board's working with us and the principal's working with us quite a bit on this. And they're very satisfied with the arrangement that we foresee happening. Also, I should point out that they're probably going to make a determination at the end of September what happens October 16th. So we'll know soon. We don't have to wait till October 16th to figure out if they're going to be going back to school. They're going to make that judgment call before that. So we'll probably know. There's a good chance we may know, get an idea of what things look like at the next council meeting moving forward. So Officer Kim is actually on day shift tomorrow, and he and I are going to be meeting and going over the arrangement tomorrow. So.
So do we have the ability to terminate if there's no school for the rest of the year?
Well.
Or be reimbursed for our portion? I don't know.
No, they're still going to
definitely-
honor. No, they're still going to honor the contract, and we'll be receiving the monthly amount that they give us today throughout the year.
Okay,
Isn't Mayfield
Okay.
Schools paying us about 85% of that?
75.
No, it's about 80 or 85. That's correct.
Oh, really? I thought it was a little bit less.
So the arrangement as it stands is quite favorable at this point.
So if they balk at that, what do we do?
Well,
They're not. I don't believe they are. We have a contract with them. That's the whole point.
Okay, sounds good.
And I'd also just like to add one thing, nobody saw this coming, of course, with the whole pandemic. But as you recall, I don't know the exact date, but it was sometime in March when school stopped. So, looking at the big picture here, we probably had Arch an extra 3 months. So March, April, May, and then once again at the start of the school year. So it's, I guess sometimes it's luck of the draw, so to speak, but it's worked out for us.
Okay.
Thank you. That's helpful.
It's a good deal for us.
Okay,
Well,
so
we don't want to lose Arch. He's terrific.
So Larry, do you want to now?
Yeah, so make a motion to accept resolution number 2020-29, authorizing mayor to enter into the second one-year extension for the school resource officer.
Second,
There were several of you. The first one I saw was Ann seconding.
Okay.
Is that right?
Good.
Okay. Allworder,
Yes.
Frankel,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Sog,
Yes.
Turner,
yes.
Welsh,
Yes.
Whitney.
Yes.
okay. Next thing on the agenda is resolution 2020-30. Chip?
Okay, well, here we go. So this resolution number 2020-30 is a resolution awarding a contract to NES Corp. For the repair and resurfacing of various roads in 2020 and declaring an emergency. So I would recommend that before we, do that and second it, that we go through the discussion. I have sent out 2 emails to all council members. One a few days ago recommending that if you have a chance, that you drive the streets that we're talking about, Woodstock, Dorchester, and Chartley, and also possibly if you had the chance to drive Fox Hill and Fox Hill East. And in the material I subsequently sent out, I'll put that into context. And then I sent out a couple of charts yesterday late afternoon. And I guess I'd like to start if everybody received a copy. Beth, by the way, while this council meeting's been going on, I got an email that my email to you didn't go through. I don't know, apparently I don't have the correct email address. So you may need, I can try to either get that or Janet can get it to you, but you did not get it. But everybody else on this call, to my knowledge, received that email. So I'd like to start. Did anybody not receive the email or does not have the chart in front of them?
Nope, we got it. I got it.
We all
Okay.
received.
Okay, so, and this is I'm trying to put this in a lot of context because we are putting in front of us tonight, over $200,000 expenditure decision in a very tough time. So I certainly think this is a very important decision, and I'm mixed on just what we should do, but I want to make sure we're as educated as we can be. So where I thought we would start, and I won't dwell too much, the first schedule 1, as I called it, I just wanted to provide a little bit of an overview of how much we spend as a village on roads and culverts. We tend to kind of split ourselves into those two categories. This is the capital expenditures. This would not include any of the work that our service department does, crack filling and culvert work that they can do themselves. This is when we contract out the work, and that falls under the capital expenditure side. And I gave 5-year history, just going back over our year-end financial statements over the previous 5 years. And the average for roads is $318,000. The average that we spend on culverts is $312,000. Going into 2020, we budgeted $397 for roads and only $133,000 for culverts and other. That did include a mini excavator. So there is occasionally some service department equipment that shows up there, for a total of $530,000, basically $100,000 less than our 5-year average. And I think that's important to know that we already went into this year with a less amount for capital expenditure than what we've been averaging. The interesting thing on the culverts, and I want to just comment on and note that some of that work tends to come in very lumpy fashion. We had a lot of work to do on the Berkshire. If you recall, the side of the road was falling in under Lower Berkshire. A lot of culvert work on Foxborough, then on Sudbury, and then again on Brigham. We didn't have much of that in 2019, but even if you add those up and divide by 5, the average is $145,000 a year. We haven't incurred any of that in 2020. Now, sometimes that can come up as a real emergency, but by and large, it's work that we know might be in front of us. We don't have much of that in 2020. When we put our first pass at our long-range plan, we just dropped in some numbers, and we didn't really per se break it out between roads and culverts. But if you use the same history, we've technically provisioned at the moment in our 5-year average of our going forward, $265,000 for roads and $260,000 for culverts, which again, you can see compared to the last 5 years, not counting this year, that's about $100,000 below what we have been experiencing as a village. So I just wanted to put that into context of now turning to 2020, what we're dealing with here. So schedule
Chip,
2.
Could I
Sorry,
say
yes.
that a minute?
Sure. Yes.
Have we done an evaluation of, since we've repaired quite a few culverts that were quite old, whether or not we are where we are with old culverts? Have we looked at that at all? Dave may be the one to answer this. I don't know.
Oh, boy.
Well, just,
Yeah, I mean, we have a detailed map that shows all the culverts, village-wide. Some of it to go out and inspect them proactively. It's not something that we've done. We typically take a good look at them if either we experience some sort of flooding that could be related to a problem with a culvert, or a blockage, and the service department is made aware of it, or if we get any sort of an issue with the roadway or a sinkhole in a berm over the top of it, and then we'll take a look at it. The bigger ones we do look at, the ones that would be, 36, 42 inches, some of the larger ones.
Nancy, I think to your point, we've really taken care, well, I don't want to jinx myself, but I mean, we really through the years have addressed the ones, you know, that we knew of, whether it be a county one or ones that we were responsible for, you know, other than really the Mayfield Road culvert hanging over our head. It would really be something I think that it would be unexpected, but I think to your point, we have through the years really tried to address those.
So I'd just
think
like to,
that's
if I
a
may
three-
ask a question here, to, I don't know that this was Chip's point, but it begs the question, Dave and also Chris, is our long-range plan underestimating what our average CapEx will be over the next 5 years?
Okay, so I should have made that comment. Because of some of what's just come up this year and now really focusing on our, you know, what should be the right number for long range, Chris Courtney has undertaken a much more extensive look. Doesn't have that complete. His preliminary look is that the roads portion would probably be in the 450 kind of range. It might be higher than that, less what we could get reimbursed from the county if that program continues. So it could even it could be a little bit higher, but it's in the range, and we're still refining this hopefully over the next week or two. It looks like our long range plan is low by a couple of $100,000.
So I would like to be able to revise the long-range plan in advance of the long-range planning meeting, which we expect to have probably by the end of this month. Is that feasible?
Chris, I think that's consistent with your timing on
Yes, it is. I'll have, I did the preliminary 5-year plan that Chip is using to base his numbers on for discussion this evening that needs some refinement. And then I'll be taking a longer view, 10-year, with the same sort of an effort to try to develop that annual average number over the course of the next 10 years, based on ongoing roadway inspections that I'm doing right now. But yeah, that will definitely be done within the next week to 10 days.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. And sorry, I want to get through the material, but I just want to be sure I answer questions that either I or directed at anybody. So if I turn to Schedule 2, I start out that schedule with just relisting again the budget for 2020. The general roads were 200,000 rather were budgeted. The Mayfield River Safety Project, 177,000 budgeted. We anticipated that contract would be let and worked on this year. And as you've seen, that now has been moved out to 2021. Although, as you will see on the rest of the schedule, we've spent some money on that already. Cedar Road, there was going to be, we just provisioned some typical residual kind of work. That doesn't look like that's going to come into that same extent. Culverts and other, the 113,000 that did include a mini excavator. And then we generally provision 20,000 for contingencies, a total of 530,000. So what have we incurred to date? We had the old mill emergency and some other miscellaneous work so far. This is through July 31st. Totaling 47,000. We did spend 59,000 so far on the Mayfield River Safety preliminary work. The contract or the work that we approved in the last council meeting for the county roads was 190,000. And again, we'll get some of that back next year, but that tends to be, we sort of go from year to year. Cedar, we've spent about 2,000. I've rounded all these numbers. We don't anticipate more on Cedar. We've spent 73,000 on culverts and other. And we've spent 13,000 on what we would sort of view as contingencies. But we have also received 62,000 from the county from last year. So this isn't the same kind of accounting that we do in our monthly financials, because Janet has to record the reimbursement from the county into other income. Whereas obviously these other expenditures show up on our capital expenditure. But the net effect really is that should come out of how we plan our capital, trying to track all this. And so through the end of July, net, counting that 62,000 money in for last year's road work for the county, their portion, totals 322,000. Now, as many times as Dave and Chris and I have gone through this, I asked Chris to go back and scrutinize the engineering portion of all this. There can be a lag effect on how that gets billed. And late this afternoon, he emailed me that we actually are still going to be getting another 20,000 or so in engineering expense and related to the road work that's already been approved. So that 322,000 should more appropriately, this 322 is what's come through the income statement reporting through July 31st, but we should provision another 20,000 likely to be received that would be 342,000. So if I just pause at that point, if we don't do anything else with our roads and we don't get any surprises, you notice at the bottom, the other yet to be incurred, we may get, some surprise of something. Maybe it's minor, maybe it's not. But if not, we would end up the year spending 342,000 versus our original budget of 530,000. So we would be under budget by 188,000. So the question is, and Dave mentioned to me, worth noting that we did also, if you recall, postpone buying a new truck, one of the trucks that we need for the service department this year. That's, I think, what, 93,000, Dave, was the number, something like that.
Correct.
So we did cut that out. That's not part of roads, and it's not part of culverts. That's what shows up on the individual department budgets under the line item at the bottom. So we did knock that out of this year. And again, if we stop now and didn't do any other road work this year, we'd be another 188,000 less than our original budget. And given the COVID and the uncertainty of what our income levels are going to be, our revenue levels are going to be this year, that is certainly a possible position we could take. But if you did have a chance to go along Woodstock, Dorchester, Chartley, of the kind of what we call our mill and fill work that we do on our streets to prolong the life, those, in our judgment, are the next highest priority of roads to do. We don't have to do all three. It is convenient typically to do roads close together because it's easy for the contractor, but we don't have to. Our first priority would be Woodstock. It's a more heavily traveled road. Dorchester is our second. That's a reasonably heavy traveled road as a cut through. Chartley, nobody wants to drive by the mayor's house, so that doesn't get as much traffic. So now on those numbers, the 112, the 82,000, and the 57,000, Chris has come back and said the engineering work that would be related to those are 6,000, 4,000, and 3,000. I apologize, I didn't have those numbers when I put this information together. So that means that Woodstock would actually be 118,000, Dorchester 86,000, Chartley 60,000. If we decided tonight to do all three, and we do need to make the decision tonight, I think, that would be 264,000. And that would bring our total budget or our total expenditure for the year, including the numbers above, plus the additional 20,000 that Chris has yet to bill. That would bring us to 606,000, which would be 76,000 over our original budget. please note that, again, our average for the last 5 years has been 630,000. I'm just saying, just as a reference point, we'd be only coming in where we have typically averaged for the last 5 years. Now, one other point, and one of the reasons that I asked if you could to drive Fox Hill and Fox Hill East. These roads, that's a tough call. They're in very poor shape. They take more than mill and fill work. We have to redo some of the foundation work on the edges and things. The engineering estimate at this point would be $320,000 for that, and probably some additional engineering costs to do that. It's very likely that would be at the top of our priority list for the 2021 budget. We obviously haven't done a budget for 2021 yet. We also then will have the residual or the remaining amount for the Mayfield River Safety Project. That's $118,000, I think, is what's left in that estimate. And of course, we will get reimbursement next year for the road work that we've just been doing on the county roads of $66,000. Dave and Chris, I didn't ask you to travel this road, but they also keep pointing out that Riverview is in need of work, and there's a little bit of a range there of how much work, but that could be 125 to 175. Now, one other point, the road work this year, just the contract, the outside contract work, the $251,000 quote for Woodstock, Dorchester, and Chartley, had we used last year's rates, had we done that work last year, it would have cost us $105,000 more dollars. And that just puts into context that we are looking at a very favorable contract rate in this year's bid. Maybe that'll happen next year. Oil prices have dropped, obviously been way down due to COVID. That has some bearing on the cost of asphalt. We also feel that we had some pretty aggressive bidding from some of the contractors that may or may not occur next year. So what we do know is that right now we're looking at this relatively good, very good rate to do this work. So if we didn't do Woodstock, Dorchester, or Chartley, we're going to be okay. It's not the end of the world, but if we don't pay it now, we're going to have to pay it later. It would be really a tough call whether we did that work next year instead of Fox Hill and Fox Hill East. But that's the dilemma. And this will only, continue. And that's part of when you look at the 5-year plan, why we really think that we're probably looking at more like 450 to 500,000, not the 265,000. So I'll stop talking. Don't know what people's reaction are, if they did have a chance to travel the roads, and what the thinking is.
If I have a question, you have, very nicely pointed out that to take on that additional road work is another $251,000. But really what hasn't been presented is that it's not a package. Woodstock, Dorchester, Chartley isn't a package deal. If one of those three were more heavily traveled or in greater need, we don't have to choose to do all three.
No. I thought I did say that. If I didn't, I meant to. No, we don't have to do all three.
We don't go from 530 and then, or we don't go, from 322 to 250 and add 251, necessarily. So my question would be is, I'm thinking in terms, because I travel those roads, particularly Woodstock, frequently, and I'm wondering if school traffic doesn't dictate that one or two of those roads is more heavily used through the year. Now, forget about COVID and the fact that school might not start, with parents drop off in school buses, but I see a lot of bus traffic on Woodstock and Cedar. I don't know that there's a lot of bus traffic on Dorchester and Chartley. So there may be, and I'm asking that out of, I'm asking to collect information here. But if I were to ask Courtney and you and maybe Dave, if you could tell me out of those three, which one A needs the most work and B, is the most heavily trafficked or used, I might not, in other words, I might say, okay, let's go ahead and do Woodstock and postpone Dorchester and Chartley rather than accepting the whole 251 3 streets redo. Do you have any sense of one being more needy or more well-traveled than the other?
I think we have them in order in terms of their need right now with Woodstock, then Dorchester, then Chartley. So Woodstock is definitely in need of more work than Dorchester, which is in need of more work than Chartley. Sorry, Mayor, Chartley's on there because of there's a few bad areas, and it makes sense to try to get them before we start to lose the integrity of the soil and the road base while any work were to be doing on Dorchester, be done on Dorchester. But definitely they're in decreasing order of need. Woodstock, Dorchester,
I think you
Chartley.
have to be aware that this is they're good prices. Our roads are all kind of aging out. We're going to be hit. And Nancy and I have talked to this a lot of different times on the roads. I think I would be in favor of doing them because next year something else is going to turn up. You're going to have, if it's Riverview, degrading more, and that may have to be added in with what's going to happen with Fox Hill and up in there, which needs a lot more work than mill and fill. Am I not correct, Chip? Which
Correct.
will be on for next year, along with the safety thing at River and Mayfield. So it just kind of snowballs if we don't keep up and keep going at keep picking at all the streets, if you will.
I understand, but if we have to stick to a budget and let's say we just included Woodstock, including the engineering fees of six, it would take our budget from 530 to 460, and 460, is still well under our 573 budget, in that we're expecting that we're going to have lower revenue than we are in, than we would like to have. So I'd love to do all three, but if we had to pick one, that was my question, one or two. If we could stay within budget and tackle the worst ones first, maybe that's a way of at least addressing a little bit this year and hoping for a little bit better revenue stream next year.
I guess I feel very strongly about doing all three of them. I feel that we have a bid that's extremely favorable. This is an opportunity that may not happen again. And right now we have worked very hard to reduce our overall expenses. This is one of the few services we really provide our residents that is so visible, and that, it really makes a difference in how they move around the village. So I feel strongly that we need to do the package, use what we have, and if we have to cut something, we cut something elsewhere. And I think if you go back to what Chip said, the fact that we had budgeted a certain amount still doesn't take into account that we averaged the money, because we had to run in and fix things that went bad. And I hate to see us having to do this as a more emergency situation where things go bad and we really have to go find somebody to fix it.
Yeah, just so everybody knows, just in terms of kind of context, I know Chip has done a great job of framing everything up. We look at these mill and fill jobs and the repair work that we do on a cost per square yard of pavement that we're going to mill out and replace. Typically, we've paid, going back over the last 5 or 6 years, anywhere between $15 to $18 a square yard to do our mill and fill repairs. Last year, we were at $17. The bid that we have for this year is $12 a square yard. And they've already completed work on Berkshire, Old Mill, and Chagrin River Road, and they've really done a really nice job. So when we say that the pricing that we have is outstanding, it really is. Just as a side.
I would like to.
I took a drive down these. Oh, go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I did look at all three roads, and I do agree that part of Dorchester and all of Woodstock really are in need. So that's not a question. It is a good price that you're getting that Chris mentions, although probably oil prices will be down the first part of the 2021. And if this were bid out again, you probably, chances are you'd get the same, same bang for the buck. I'm wondering, like, how a villager would look at us as fiscally responsible council people in this pandemic era with revenues so decreased that we would be spending over the budget. And that really concerns me. And I kind of would like to hear Tim weigh in as finance chairman, you know, how he feels.
Well,
I don't want to put you on the spot, Tim, but.
No, that's okay. I see the full argument, and I do recognize that we have a bird in the hand in terms of a very good bid for these roads, and that to me is a very powerful argument. And further, I think given the very good budgeteering that our operating people have done, and the fact that we're lower generally than last year's expenditures speaks well. And the fact that we have deferrable expenditures coming up in the fall also gives me some comfort. But so with all that said, though, I think I go back to what I've said, I think many times to council, is that your primary duty and that you have sworn to, as we all have sworn to, is to protect the public welfare. And so my question on decisions like this is always, is this something that if were we to delay it, that we would increase risk to our residents? And if the answer to that is, well, yes, then I feel like that's something we should do, and that's what reserves are for, and we need to do our duty. But if the answer is no, in a year like this, where I started out the meeting saying we're at 888,000 underneath revenues from last year, then I think we have to think very seriously about what we can delay and what we can defer, provided that we are not endangering public safety. So that's what I think.
That's very helpful. Maybe Chris or Dave
Good comments.
on which of the roads would be a safety factor.
So I think there's two components. I think I'll start with saying I think Chartley likely could wait. I don't see that deteriorating that rapidly. Again, that's on the list because there are a few bad spots. Those can be managed for a little longer period of time, perhaps with some aggressive crack sealing. Woodstock and Dorchester, I think, have the opportunity, given the wrong weather conditions, of becoming hazardous pretty quickly. And the other component to that is if we do start to lose those roads and lose some of the base material, then the other aspect of that is it would increase cost as well in order to repair them, where we may get more into a situation that we would see on Fox Hill East, where we're going to have to get in there and rebuild the roadway more from the base up, as opposed to going with a mill and fill, where we can kind of go from the top down.
Thank you. That's very helpful for me.
That's helpful.
That helps me decide based on the safety and the chances for increased deterioration. I would be in favor of doing the first two roads and postponing Chartley.
Just to brief everybody on what that math means, sort of tabulate as we go along. If we did those two roads plus the other numbers I've read to you, we would be at 546,000. Our budget was 530, so it is over budget, but not by much. And again, I do remind you that we did push out the truck, which technically is part of our overall capital. I've only been going through roads and culverts here. We pushed that out, and that's 93,000. So if we're concerned about talking to our taxpayers and think that maybe we were, not prudent enough, we will still be well under the, presumably at this point, under what we originally budgeted for this year, given the actions that were taken. Just, those are just points of reference.
May I ask?
I wanted, I wanted to make a comment. Chip, thank you for the work that you've done. This is really very helpful in giving this historic perspective. And Chris, thanks for your insights. It really helps with the decision making. I certainly would agree that Woodstock and Dorchester and either end of Chartley are in pretty bad shape. Probably not as bad as Fox Hill and Fox Hill East, but these first three are certainly more heavily trafficked roads than Fox Hill or Fox Hill East. But they certainly are in need of repair, and I think road repair is important to the villagers and attracting new villagers. I guess I would just want to make sure that, and probably ask Chris, what's your sense of the longevity of these repairs? And maybe that's hard to say. Dorchester is a long road. Part of it is in great shape, and parts of it really need some work. So what are we buying here in terms of longevity?
So keep in mind the a 2-inch mill and fill in areas is considered a maintenance activity. So we're removing and replacing bad surface. And by doing this pretty aggressively over the last number of years, we're doing everything we can to do is buy as many years before we have to fully reconstruct roads. What we're finding and the way we go about it is we either do one lane or both lanes for these repairs. You may see in some other areas patches that are half a lane wide or just a couple feet wide. And what we found is that those just don't stand up. By doing half the road or the whole road, we really get good duration out of these. Following up with crack seal, I think we end up prolonging by as many as 10 years before we have to get in there and do a full reconstruction. So I would say, other than getting, these will be pretty comprehensive repairs that we'll be doing because of the good pricing. And I would, we may have a few patches here and there, but I wouldn't say we'd have to be back into Woodstock or Dorchester and do anything really aggressively for probably another 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
And what
Good, thank
about
you.
Chartley? Chartley, are you just doing either end where it's bad, or you're doing
Yeah, and
more?
there was a few spots, Nancy, along the edge of the road where we're starting to lose the road edge. Those would be the primary. Primarily either end, and then a number of bad spots in between where we're losing the road edge in a number of spots.
So we're not doing the whole of Chartley, just a few areas.
Correct. And Woodstock and Dorchester are the same thing. Those aren't complete resurfacings. Those are just repair, mill, and fill, but more comprehensively than Chartley would get because there's more bad areas.
May I ask a question and have a comment? Would you all refresh my memory as to the expenses that we deferred until this fall? Because I think some of those expenses may deal with safety also, as far as replacing trucks and our equipment. And what were some of the larger things that we deferred? Because I think it's a big picture. I mean, roads need help, yes, but what are some of the things we deferred?
We did the plow truck. We did some, I deferred the guardrail work. I think those were the major items. No more, a lot of the outside contract, like stump grinding or grinding of the trees, we postponed all the outside contract work that we would do every year or every 2 years.
There was some tree taking out too, we
deferred. I would just throw out there that I think a plow truck falls into the safety category, as does guardrails. And my comment is that our revenues are uncertain in many different categories. We've got things coming up in the fall. We don't know what our income is going to be for municipal or for property tax. I think we have a lot of unknowns. So I understand that this is a good deal and roads are important. I am very uncomfortable committing a couple $100,000 during this time when we do not have a clear picture of our revenue situation. So that's my comment. The last thing, I did drive the roads, and Fox Hill East has a very prominent sign saying it's a private road. What does that mean?
It's not, yeah, well, they may have that posted in order, but it is a dedicated public street.
Okay. And do we know how many houses are on both combined?
I can look real quick.
I meant to find that and I didn't
We
have a
can
chance.
find
to.
that out. That's,
Yeah, I can look at the
15
map
maybe.
right now while we're
I'm
on
gonna
the
say
phone.
no more than a dozen, probably, just guessing, but we can figure
Probably
it
a
out.
little more than that.
I'll look right
And that's,
now.
of course, that's one of the frustrations is that the only traffic on Fox Hill and Fox Hill East is for people going to or from a residence and the associated, you know, delivery and things like that, as opposed to Dorchester or Woodstock. But it's in one of those positions that it's in pretty bad shape. But it's not like, they're not huge potholes. I mean, you know, if you want to frame a reference, you can't do it anymore. But if you've driven along County Line Road in Hunting Valley, and which is both Geauga and Hunting and Geauga and Cuyahoga County, that was so bad you literally had to slow down and drive 20 miles an hour and be swerving. The road got so bad. So, you know, I mean, the communities do let some roads get a whole lot worse. I'm not suggesting we do that, but so we're not dealing with a crisis here. But again, the biggest message is the more we don't do this year, the more that we're going to be facing in future years. So
It's a tough decision. I just got to say, I think this year and what we've been experiencing is a new category of all deals are off. We don't know.
About 18 residents.
homes.
Yeah.
18, yeah. Well, I put all the material together. Are there any more questions? And then I would have a proposal as to what we might try to vote on. So. then
Well, you
if
have a
not,
resolution, it can be amended. If you
yeah,
introduce the resolution, it can be amended after it's introduced.
Okay, well, I'll probably need a little guidance here, Todd. So I can do this one at a time.
Todd is gone.
Todd had to leave to go to Richmond. I knew that. So
all right, well, I can just do this and just have the resolution for Woodstock. Then we can take a vote, and then I can do and just have a resolution for Dorchester, and then have a resolution for Chartley. All the language would be the same. It'd just be one for Woodstock, one for Dorchester, one, I mean, 3 separate votes. Is that appropriate for our council tonight, do you think?
I think you can package it. I think,
As a
Yeah,
suggestion.
I would say so.
Package.
Sounds good.
I think everybody's in agreement. We got to do something.
yeah, I think you can put it together. Just, I think you just adjust the list at the top. That's all. Isn't that okay, Janet? Of the ordinance where it lists?
What do I do with the ordinance? Where is it here?
In the first paragraph, it does list local roads, Chartley, Dorchester, and Woodstock. We could eliminate.
Exactly. We just adjust it how we want.
Right, we just eliminate the roads we
But
don't.
that's not the resolution. That's just the introduction. It's not what we're voting on. We're voting on the number.
If I might say
Roads
so,
are irrelevant.
could
So
I,
we're
could I
saying
give a,
he could actually, we are authorizing 251, 298 to work on the roads that are in the recitals. But if we don't do all of them, then we don't spend that money.
Nancy's correct. Section 1 would have, the dollar amount would have to reflect the roads that we do approve. So
Correct.
could I suggest that you introduce the resolution as written? And then if one of you or more of you would like to amend it to remove something, then you propose an amendment. And that amendment would reduce the dollar amount by whatever road you wanted to take off. And that might be the most straightforward way to approach voting.
Okay, so, okay, well, I guess I'm still a little not sure how to proceed. Okay, so I move that declare an emergency, move to declare an emergency regarding
No,
resolution.
you have to suspend the rules.
Suspend the rules, I'm sorry. I move to suspend the rules for 2020, resolution 2020-30.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made by Chip and seconded by Larry. Allworder,
Yes.
Frankel,
Yes.
Reynolds.
We're gonna have a chance to amend this, though?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the next part.
Just a suspension.
Then I vote yes.
Sog,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh,
Yes.
All right.
Whitney.
Now I move to approve resolution 2020-30, awarding a contract to NES Corp. For the repair and resurfacing of various roads in 2020.
I don't believe Councilperson Whitney got a chance to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I said yes to suspending the rules. Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry. Thought you had.
Okay, so now the
I'm gonna
resolution has
second.
been,
Yeah, and I'm gonna
I think
second.
Larry already did.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay,
Not the suspension. We've already voted that.
right.
Larry,
The motion,
go ahead.
correct, Larry?
I did not second the motion for the.
I'm seconding it. Okay.
Okay, Nancy. All right. Motion made by Chip, seconded by Nancy. Allworder,
Wait, what are we voting on?
No, they're gonna.
Wait a
move
minute,
to
wait a
amend
minute.
it.
What are we
Right.
voting on?
That's where I don't know quite the procedure here. So Mary, do you want to jump in?
We voted to suspend,
mm-hmm.
but I think before we vote to approve, which would be the next step, we have to dictate the amendments.
Yes, there's
No,
a motion
if
there.
you're gonna make a motion to amend and we're gonna vote on it, it can be voted up or down.
Correct. There's a motion on the floor and you can now entertain motions to amend or
Correct.
discuss further if you choose.
Correct. So I would like to make a motion to, I'm sorry, am I out of turn?
Well, if Chip made a motion to approve, then he's making a motion to approve the resolution as it was written.
Well, I might have made a mistake doing that, Janet. I'm not sure. That's what I'm trying to.
No, I think, I
you
think
can
he's got it
vote
right. You gotta
down the
make-
resolution.
That is,
You gotta-
what he's done is absolutely correct. He's put.
Yes, it is.
Made a motion, it is seconded. You don't
Now it's
have to go
discussed.
immediately to a vote. You can now discuss
Okay.
and move amendments. And
Exactly.
then if amendments will pass or fail, and then in the wake of all that, then there'll be a vote on the perhaps amended motion.
Amended.
Okay.
Okay, so who wants to amend this?
I will make.
All right, I'm gonna amend it, in the first paragraph that Chartley be removed from the group of local roads, which would leave Dorchester and Woodstock.
And that would result in the dollar amount. We need to, Chris, do you want to get to the actual number?
Yeah, for NES, it would be the 112 for Woodstock plus 82 for Dorchester. So it would be 194,000, not to exceed $194,000.
And it does not include engineering.
Does that include your engineering fees?
It does, it does not, but this resolution is only to award the construction amount.
Okay,
to
okay,
NES.
okay.
Well, Chris, just to be exact, this original resolution had 251, 298. If 194,000, do we need to add any pennies to that, or does that cover?
One moment, please.
Just round it up to whatever the number is.
195, not to exceed $195,000 would be fine,
Wait a minute.
unless
well,
you want the,
12 and 82 is 194.
Well, but those are rounded, and so.
They're rounded numbers, Mary. You want to make sure by the $1,000 that we cover it completely.
So what are you recommending?
Not material.
Not to exceed 195.
Okay, got it.
This is the only amendment. There will not be a choice to do the work only including Woodstock.
If you want to put that amendment
You
forward.
can make another, let's vote on the first amendment.
Okay.
Then you can make a different one if you want.
All right, I'll second the First Amendment.
Except.
Okay.
I got a question, Nancy, then how do you vote in favor of both?
Yeah, that's not right. I probably should withdraw mine. I'll withdraw my amendment and it makes sense to do it with your amendment first.
I agree.
Because
Okay,
we can't vote for two and then go back and eliminate one of those, I don't think.
Right.
So you go ahead, Ann.
Okay, I would move to amend the section 1 to eliminate the Dorchester and Chartley portions of the expenditure. So it would be an expenditure for $112,000.
Exact amount is $112,402.
Exactly.
113, not to exceed 113.
okay, anybody want to second that amendment?
I'll second the amendment.
Okay,
Do we have a vote on this?
yes, ready to vote on
Okay.
that amendment?
Okay. Allward,
No,
Frankel,
Yes.
Reynolds,
No.
Sog,
I couldn't hear.
No.
Wait. Reynolds was no.
Correct.
Dog is no.
Turner,
No,
Welsh,
No,
Whitney.
Yes.
Okay, so the amendment fails. So Mary, you want to make your other one?
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment to include in the language in the first paragraph, Dorchester Road as well. And then Courtney, and our dollar figure that we would like to ask for is
$81,593.50, or
Wait.
not to exceed $82,000.
No,
Wait.
no, no.
No.
She's
No.
doing both of them. Just
We're
take
doing the
out
two
Charlie.
together.
195,000.
correct.
Mhm.
Right.
$195,000.
So my
Thank
first,
you.
my first paragraph would simply remove the word Chartley, and in section 1, the dollar amount would now read not to exceed 195,000.
Correct.
I make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Who said that?
Mary.
Larry,
Larry. Okay, I only see none of you at once. Allward,
yes,
Frankel,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Sog,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes,
Welsh,
yes,
Whitney.
No.
So now you have to vote on the final amended proposal.
I
We
think this
did
is so wrong.
That was
No.
what we just
I
did.
guess,
Was
okay,
we
all
voted
right.
on the amended
fine.
resolution.
Okay, we're good.
We're done.
we're done?
Okay, let's move
Done with
on.
that. Not the last thing on the agenda.
Roy.
No, I know, I just
No,
meant this. Okay,
All right, next is resolution number 2020-31. Ann.
I would like to introduce Resolution 2020-31, a resolution authorizing and directing the transfer of certain sums from the general fund to the capital improvement fund. And because this is housekeeping in order for the village to do business, I move that we suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion made by Ann, seconded by Chip.
No,
Mary.
Reynolds.
It's all right. Doesn't
Mary
matter.
Reynolds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, seconded by Mary Reynolds.
that's fine.
Allward,
Yes,
Frankel,
Yes.
Reynolds, Sog,
Yes.
Turner,
yes,
Welsh,
yes,
Whitney.
Yes, and I move to adopt resolution number 2020-31.
I'll second.
That was made by Ann and seconded by Mary. Allward,
yes,
Frankel,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Sog,
Yes.
Turner,
yes.
Welsh,
yes.
Whitney.
Yes.
Okay,
You know,
thank you.
this was done, this was just the remainder of what we had already scheduled to transfer. If, with what you've approved tonight, if I need to change appropriations or transfer more money, you'll see that in September.
Okay. Tom, is there any business from the audience?
No, there is not. We've had a maximum of 6 people watching and we have no questions or comments.
Okay.
Mayor, I
So-
have one comment I heard back from Heather Elmer from the Schroeder River Watershed Partners regarding the riparian setback video. She said that they would be happy to do it. They can have a video to us that we can post on the website by Friday, September 4th. And they're also willing and able to do the introductory presentation for the public hearing in a virtual manner so that we can have that educational information at the beginning of the public hearing, which they would anticipate would be mid to late September.
Okay,
Can I speak?
sure.
This is Catherine from the library.
Hi, Catherine.
Hello. As first thing I want to ask is, does anybody have questions about what the library is doing at this time?
No, I've already been back enjoying it. Glad to have you.
Could you review the hours of the library for us?
The library hours are back to normal, 9 to 9, Monday through Thursday, 9 to 5:30, Friday, Saturday. The only exception is we are not open at this time, 1 to 5 on Sunday.
Okay.
Excellent.
And the other
What
thing,
about passports, Catherine?
we are not doing passports because the federal government is not doing passports unless it is an emergency of life and death.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so the federal government is not doing passports at this time, so we cannot process passports.
Wow, I didn't realize they'd stop issuing passports. That's fascinating.
What happens, Catherine, if you have somebody that theirs expires when all this is going on?
It expires and hopefully the federal government will start up someday soon. But if we start processing passports, we're given a certain amount of time to get it to them to process themselves. And since they're closed, we can't do that.
Catherine, I have a question too. For a period of time, the libraries that had drive-through, were able to open for drive-through, and you didn't have that option. So, how has that affected our usage and, view of the Gates Mills Library system-wide?
We're doing curbside at this time.
Okay.
And actually every branch is either doing curbside or drive up. But we are seeing across the board a total collapse of people coming into the library and not a very good use of the library material either. Everything is down, circulation's down, and of course, customers coming in are down. Part of it is because we don't have programs. Part of it is we don't have meetings. And part of it is we don't have things like toys for the children to play with. We still have computers, but they're not even being used that much right now. I think some of it is people are just afraid to come in. People are just not coming, period, to do anything. So, and that was why I was coming also to talk with you about our levy that's coming up November 3rd. We're getting a little pushback from people throughout the county saying, even though it's a $1 million, $3 per $100,000 house, it's too much. And so I'm asking that all of you think about it. I mean, the libraries are important. Once people feel more comfortable about coming into buildings, and once we can begin to come back with programs and allow meetings, we may go back to where we were before. But if we don't have this levy passed, we are going to cut staffing, we're going to cut hours. This is very important for us to stay alive. We're losing a 2.5% mill and we're going with a 1% mill. So please push for our libraries.
I'd like to add, Catherine, my wife's been extremely active with the Cuyahoga County Foundation. It's the #1 public library system in the country for the last 5 or 6 years. It's an amazing system. What you think we see in Gates Mills Library is just a small portion of what the library does for the impoverished communities, for meals, for safe places for the kids in today's world where they need access to the internet. It's just a gem of an organization and one that we should be supporting every way possible in our county.
And we're looking at going forward. We're looking at until we can open safely. We're going to start doing a lot more virtual programming. We are going to work with the schools because a lot of them are going virtual, but people don't either have the equipment or the knowledge to do what they need to get their children online with the schools. So we are training our staff to go with the software that each school is using. Mayfield is using 2 types, and they're using Google and they're using Seesaw. And so we're training our staff to be able to help customers with that. And we're pushing out hotspots. We're starting with PCs for people, which is where we're gathering old PCs, printers, anything that would help families get their children online. We're working with PCs for people to gather this equipment. They will refurbish it and get it out to whoever needs it. So the libraries are looking beyond just books and CDs and DVDs. But this is all critical for our levy. We've got to be able to say to people, yes, the libraries are right now stagnant, but so is a lot of commercial businesses stagnant. A lot of businesses are going under, restaurants are going under. We're just trying to stay alive ourselves because we service anybody who comes through our doors or calls us.
Catherine, I have a printer that I was going to take to Goodwill tomorrow. Can I drop it off with you?
Actually, Mayfield would be the place because Mayfield is doing PCs for people. Gates Mills was considered too small, nor did we have enough room for a truck to come in and pick up.
So how do you drop it off there? I'm sorry to take up everyone's time.
I will send you a link a little later and you will see when they're collecting. You just put it in a large box and a truck comes by and lifts up this box and puts it in the truck and they take off.
Thank you.
Let's definitely put that in the pink sheet because I have an old iPad that I'm happy to give too.
Oh,
So
okay, that's great. I'll do that.
There've got to be people all through this community that have upgraded, iPads or whatever and laptops. And I can imagine that there'd be plenty of people who could contribute to that program. I'd love to see that in the future.
And PCs for People is very secure. They do wipe out all memory from every single piece. I mean, they're rated very high. So you don't have to worry about, smashing whatever, because if you do that, you may destroy your machine.
Perfect.
But that's another example of what the libraries are looking to do for the communities.
Great.
Catherine.
Thank you.
Catherine, this is Larry. I think I saw that that if the computer was older than 7 years, they didn't want that. Is that true or not?
They would actually take pieces of that and reformulate it into other machines that they could use it for.
Okay, that's good.
They're taking, right now, their need is so great in the whole Cuyahoga County, the Cleveland area, that they're taking anything and trying to help.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Catherine, will you put that on your page in the next pink sheet?
Yes, someone else suggested that. I'll try to do that.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
No, then Mayor, would you like me to make a motion to adjourn?
Sure.
Second.
It's part of my
Alwarder,
Public
Yes.
service.
Frankel,
Absolutely, yes.
Reynolds,
Yes, ma'am.
Sog,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Welsh,
Yes.
Whitney.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Stay healthy.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you, Chip, for all that work you did.
Thanks, Larry.
It was great. Very helpful.
Thanks.
See you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, Ed. We're thinking about you. Mwah.
Thanks. Thank you, Mary.
Good night, all.
Good night.